You are listening to a Monster Kid podcast.
Why don't we rent a video tonight?
Yeah, can we please?
On a weeknight?
Yeah, come on, Mom. It's okay.
Sure. Come on. Let's throw caution to the wind.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vericon Video, a show where we relive forgotten and unforgettable movies that once lined the shelves of video stores everywhere. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Joseph.
And today we're starting off in Gainesville, Florida, but we'll be spending most of our time in New York City. New York City? To help hotshot defense attorney Kevin Lomax pick a jury, he's never lost a case, and we have to help his wife Marianne pick the right shade of green for their apartment. Meanwhile, we'll encounter dressing room demons, Coach, baby fever, baby holding bloody ovaries, Don King, subway Spanish, throat cutting, Trump's golden New York apartment, ghost joggers, sexual fantasies, perversion, incest, really big sculptures that come to life and burst into flames, the worst Florida panhandle accent in cinema history, and a disgustin pig monster. It's The Devil's Advocate from 1997, and we're going to be talking about all 2 hours and 26 minutes of it right here, right now. So get your vanity in check. It's definitely our favorite sin. And sit back, relax, and welcome.
Welcome to the Cafe 80s, where it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I have the only gun on board. Welcome to Con Air.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Okay, good evening, America, and welcome aboard Apollo 13.
I'm so glad you could come. This is going to be such an exciting day. I hope you're enjoying it. I think you will.
Kevin Lomax gets his dream job working for one of the top law firms in the world, Milton, Chadwick, and Waters. As Kevin gets lost in his work and his wife starts to fall into insanity, he soon learns that the firm and its top dog, John Milton, are not what they seem. He's the devil, folks. John Milton is the devil, and Kevin's father. Spoiled the fuck out of this one, huh? So, Joseph, have you ever been to court for any reason that you're willing to share on the air?
Yeah, the unclassified, declassified information. I've not. I've heard a lot of crazy stories about little minor stuff, nothing too into the felony or fraud type of reasons, but I've heard some pretty interesting, going into Walmart on a Friday night type of atmospheric experiences in court.
Yeah.
How about you?
I have. I've been once, or I think I've just been one time, and it was for a moving violation or something like that. I think that they had just put into effect the move over law in Tennessee. And I didn't move over, and then I got a ticket, had to go to court. And it was scary, man. I was so fucking scared. But it was, when I went into the courtroom, it was nothing like you would see in this movie or really any other big Hollywood movie. Like it's very dreary and soul-sucking.
Well, I mean, you got the audience, right? And then you got the jurors, and you have the judge. And it's a very intense, you could hear a pin drop, And,
Yeah.
and that's what you come to expect in a courtroom, but from what you said, it's just kind of like, usually it's this very casual type of experience.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, for me, like I didn't have a trial for that. And so I didn't have to worry about the jury or anything like that. But like I have been in courtrooms before, like in high school, I think we went to a courtroom to watch, like to see how it happens at the local level. And it was boring as shit. Like it was just very routine stuff. People coming in, for skipping out on their parole or something like that. It was just not very interesting. I was like, I want fucking O.J. Simpson level. That's what I was expecting. So you've never been to court, but how are you with courtroom dramas? Like,
I am obsessed.
Oh, you like those?
Absolutely. So, yes. I've actually grown up with my uncle being a Scientology prosecutor.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And I grew up hearing all of these stories about him on trial with these guys, and growing up with that and watching movies like, big shout out to Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth, and and just watching all these movies with that. I absolutely am obsessed with courtroom dramas. How about you?
Oh, yeah, the same. Like I love them. My favorite of all time is Primal Fear with Richard Gere and Edward Norton and Laura Linney. It's fantastic. I'd love to do that at some point. And I really like The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and like you mentioned, A Few Good Men, stuff like that. And this one, of course, definitely, right up there for me. I don't really get into those on TV, like SVU and the Law and Order things. Like sometimes you'll see courtroom scenes on there, and I think they're just boring because they're so short that you don't really get invested in them. They're not complex enough for you to really care about the discovery or the cross-examinations or anything like that. Jury's deliberating. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. But then you get stuff like this where you're looking at the law from a different, I don't know, in the movies, you get a chance to really dig in and really settle into the situation and really getting to weigh out both sides yourself, I think. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable.
But yeah, this is the first time watch for you, and I take it you had a pretty awesome time with it.
Yeah, to say the least. Man, oh man. It's funny, guys, when I was watching this during the entire movie, I'd just be sending Brandon these texts, consistent texts, like a spam, right? Just over and over, saying how exhilarating this film was to watch. And as you all know or are aware of, I just published this album like a couple months ago, back in May, about heaven, hell, and this movie, ironically, just really hits home so much of that. And so immediately I just became obsessed with the plot, and the acting is just so profound. The cast is the plethora of talent in this cast. Holy shit. And Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino, like, you talk about top dogs, and it's just it's a beauty. And I don't know how Brandon does. I don't know how you do it, man. But you give me these films that I've never heard of, and then I watch it, and I'm just like, whoa.
Like, where has this been? How did I miss this?
Where's this been all my life? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had texted me that, like, how did you not know about this? And I think in part, nobody really talks about this movie anymore except for that one scene towards the end, like John Milton's or Pacino's speech about Kevin carrying all these bricks. Who are you carrying all these bricks for? God. And he starts talking about God and shitting on him. And that's the scene that gets talked about the most. But the rest of the film, no one really cares about. And so it did get a Blu-ray release, but still nobody really talks about it. So this is one that's been on my radar for a long, long time. I love this movie. My dad and I saw this in theaters, and I remember that moment very, very, very well. And after it had made its way to home video, I rented it and took it to my grandparents' house because I wanted them to experience it because they were very religious and stuff. And I remember thinking about halfway through the movie, about the time Jackie turns into a demon in the dressing room and stuff. And I was like, this might not have been the best idea to watch this with your grandparents. I was like 12,
What did they do? Like when they
I wish I could remember. I remember watching it with them and being a little uncomfortable, but yet I was really curious about the kinds of things that they were picking up on. And I think at the end of the movie, they were just like, oh, that was good. And that was it. Like, there was really no other discussion about it. And so, but this is probably a top 15 film for me. Like, I've watched it so much over the years, and I watched it 3 times this week, So yeah, it's a winner for me, Joseph. So let's give our listeners a little bit of background and context on this movie, on The Devil's Advocate. So it's directed by Taylor Hackford, husband to Helen Mirren. They actually married the year this movie came out. It's written by Jonathan Lemkin and Tony Gilroy, based on the novel by Andrew Niederman, and stars Keanu Reeves, Charlize Theron, Al Pacino, Jeffrey Jones, Craig T. Nelson, and Connie Nielsen.
Yeah, Al Pacino actually turned this movie down 5 times. According to some accounts, just 3. Not convinced he could pull off the role, suggesting that they go someone like Robert Redford or Sean Connery. Joel Schumacher was originally set to direct this film in 1994 with Brad Pitt to star as Kevin Lomax. Christian Slater, John Cusack, and Edward Norton were then considered for the role.
And we just did Falling Down, directed by Schumacher, over on Patreon. So
I guess I did.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to that episode, be sure to go and check that out. Now, all of our patrons, regardless of tier, have access to our bonus episode feed. So $2 or $4 a month. Be sure to go and subscribe, and you can listen to that and several others right now.
It's pretty high speed, low drag, y'all.
Christian Slater. Fuck me, he cleared it. Jeez. We're never going to forget that. I think
throwback.
We will probably be on our death. That might be my last words ever. It's fuck me, he cleared it. And just
he cleared it.
He cleared it. And if you don't get that joke, folks, go listen to our episode on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
It's a classic.
So this movie, despite playing a married couple close in age, Keanu Reeves was 31 and Charlize Theron was 21 during filming. And they would go on to star as a couple again 4 years later in Sweet November. That was 2001. Keanu Reeves chose to star in Devil's Advocate over Speed 2 despite a promised $11 million for the sequel to his 1994 hit Speed. According to Reeves' staff, the actor was averse to performing in 2 consecutive action films after Chain Reaction, and on The Devil's Advocate, Reeves agreed to a pay cut worth millions of dollars just so the producers could meet Pacino's salary demands. And Pacino himself, to prepare for the role, he watched the 1941 film The Devil and Daniel Webster and observed tips from actor Walter Huston as Mr. Scratch. And he also read Dante's Inferno and Paradise Lost for the role. So like I said, this was based on a book by Andrew Niederman. His novel was published in 1990, and he believed the story could be adapted into a film. So he approached Warner Brothers and claimed to have his successful sale with a synopsis. It is about a law firm in New York that represents only guilty people and never loses.
Wow.
Which is a pretty good premise to start with, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But this project fell apart several times. And the O.J. Simpson murder trial and its controversial outcome gave new impetus to relaunch the project, and with a $60 million budget. I believe it was done for about a little less than that, about like 57, something like that. And then Warner Brothers hired Taylor Hackford to direct this new attempt, who embraced that legal drama aspect, theorizing that, quote, the courtroom had become the gladiator arena of the late 20th century, following the progress of a sensational trial that is a spectator sport. I mean, I was thinking about this quote today, and it was, I think that certainly in the wake of OJ in the mid-90s, that we were very much attuned to these high-profile cases and stuff like that, like the Menendez brothers and stuff like that, that the Cable Guy would later spoof. What was the last high-profile trial that you can remember?
Oh man, since OJ and going back to OJ, I think that was a huge spark, definitely for this, and the whole sensation of intensity and what can happen to these convicted criminals. But there was the mom and the kid drowning, her daughter drowning in the pool.
I can't remember her name now.
Our listeners might be able to help us, but that was one where I really was glued, like every day, and you'd get her in the courtroom, and there was just so much evidence, but yet there was so much unexpected conclusion that you felt that she was actually going to be free from it. And it just kept you on the edge every single day. So that's the one trial that I remember being so attached to. How about you?
Oh, gosh, I can't even remember. I can't think of anything on a national level that really stuck with me. I mean, there are a few, but they all kind of blend together now. Like they were just kind of the flavor of the week for a while, I think.
Right.
And then you just move on to the next thing. And that just reflects our culture now, where we move on to the next thing very quickly.
Right. That's true. Kaylee Anthony.
Ah, yes.
That was it.
That's
Kaylee Anthony.
it.
Oh,
that's
my God.
it.
Yep.
Very, very good. Yeah, that's the one that I remember too, but I'd forgotten her name, and I remembered I'd forgotten all the specifics. But yeah, tell us about the rewrites.
Yeah. So Tony Gilroy led much of the rewrite with supervision by Hackford, who envisioned it as a modern day morality play, or Faustian tale. As the screenplay developed, free will became a huge part of this theme, in which Milton does not actually cause the events. Hackford wanted suggestions that Milton merely set the stage and characters were solely responsible for their actions. I love this.
I do too.
Job.
And this is something I definitely want to talk to when we get towards the end, when Milton talks about being like the last humanist. We'll save that for the end, but I definitely want to unpack that a little bit more when we get there. Speaking of Hackford, he cited that the films Rosemary's Baby and The Omen as influences, and both had explored the Antichrist mythology. I just watched Rosemary's Baby for the first time maybe 3 weeks ago. I'd read the book before, but while I was watching the movie, all I could think about was this movie. But the apartment scenes and Rosemary's paranoia and fearfulness and her husband telling her she's crazy while all this hellish stuff is going on. Like the DNA of Rosemary's Baby is definitely in this movie, reflected in the Mary Ann character especially. Oh, an interesting note, the film had its release on October 17th, 1997, on the same day as another horror film, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did, actually. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's insane.
I know. It's a good book. I remember reading the book. It's not a great movie. I remember reading it in 7th grade and being floored by the twist. But that twist could only work in the novel. And so they had to change it for the film. In the book, the reveal was just so well executed, from what I remember. But I was like, 12 or so. So what do I know? I mean, but I read all those Lois Duncan books in school. So much fun.
Oh my God. Yeah. In 6th grade, the teacher had us read that book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. A little note here about The Devil's Advocate. So this movie's official title is The Devil's Advocate, but on the poster and the DVD and the Blu-ray and really all of the promotional materials, it just says Devil's Advocate. And that's always bugged me a little bit. I don't know why. It's just a little nitpick. Because it seems like it brings on a different meaning when you say devil's advocate. Because devil's advocate, I think, implies more of the expression we use when we say we're playing devil's advocate in a debate or a conversation or something like that. Whereas the devil's advocate, to me, it's saying that Kevin is the advocate of the devil. Like it's a quite literal phrase, I think.
It gives you a more polished sense of what's going on versus just this casual devil's advocate. Yeah, like I feel like putting the, even though it's just this little tiny article of a word, putting the in front of a title like this really gives it a profound statement, you know? I
think so too. I mean, movies generally, when you say the something, it gives it a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit of mystery to it, I guess. I don't know. It's a little thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's not waste time here, Joseph. So are you ready to walk through this movie?
You know, Brandon, not as ready as eating large quantities of chocolate and comparing that to the overrated quality of love. But yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
And now, our feature presentation.
So we open here on young Barbara, played by Heather Matarazzo, of Welcome to the Dollhouse and Scream 3, a small part. She played Randy's sister, on the witness stand. And she is relating how her teacher, Mr. Geddes, kept her after class and touched her inappropriately. And Geddes is sitting with his attorney, Kevin Lomax, this is played by Keanu Reeves, as the prosecutor is setting the stage. And some guy notices Kevin's he's wearing cowboy boots. And he just kind of looks at him like, what about it? Like, I'm wearing cowboy boots. And Kevin looks over, and as Barbara is talking about what happened to her, Geddes is touching himself under the table as he's listening to the story, and he's smiling just a little bit, and he's rubbing the underside of the desk.
I don't know what's attractive about the underside of the desk, but okay.
I love this, and I love this actor. I can't remember his name right off the bat. I should have wrote it down, but he was in 8mm. He's been in a lot of really great movies, but he's a chameleon. Like, he looks different and everything. But here with the glasses, he is Lloyd Geddes to me. And Kevin catches him, and so Geddes just laces his hands in front of him on the table like an innocent boy. But there's just something about that, like where he's rubbing the table, like he's caressing it.
Right.
It's really gross it's really gross, yeah. And so Kevin asks for recess, and he gets it, and he has words with Geddes in the lobby. He's like, Geddes is like, oh, you know she's lying, and Kevin's a little pissed off. He's like, why don't we put you on the stand so you can jerk off for the judge? I'm sorry, we're going to be doing lots of impressions, I think, in this episode. So get ready for that accent, baby. And so he takes some quiet time in the men's room, and Larry, this local reporter, he comes in to take a piss, and he's talking to Kevin. He's trying to get a quote from him, and he's saying that this might be, your first case to lose. And we get this boom, or this sound, and we don't really know what it is, but Kevin kind of steps back, and he looks at Larry, and Larry just keeps talking, and he's walking out. He says, it was a nice run, Kev. Had to close out someday. Nobody wins them all. Gives him a little wink.
that little classic.
Yeah. And Kevin's at the mirror, and he puts his wedding ring back on. I guess he took it off to wash his hands, and he checks his teeth. Now, this shot, I mentioned this on Twitter, but I never understood the shot until I watched the movie with the director's commentary. And what Taylor Hackford said is that he's simply checking his teeth before he goes back out into court. But it looks like a grin, this really maniacal, evil grin.
Right.
And so I never really understood what that meant. So having that explanation really helped me out. So he goes back out there, and he eats Barbara alive during his examination of her. And he's working the jury. He's got this notebook of hers with drawings and notes making fun of Mr. Geddes that he makes sure that the jury sees. He's just standing by the jury box, I guess you call it. And he's painting her as like a troubled student. He's destroying her credibility. He says something like, so you never called Mr. Geddes and he looks at the paper, a disgusting peg monster. Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara. It's huge hog beast. He probably has 1,000 pancakes for breakfast. I just can't get enough of that accent. It cracks me up so much. I love it. And to me, now it works because that's what I'm used to, you know?
And okay.
Yeah, jump on in here.
Okay, first of all, does Geddes look like the little brother of George Costanza from Seinfeld?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Oh my God.
Unequivocally, yes. He's absolutely, he's related to the Costanzas. He's got to be.
Oh my God. Just the little brother / pedophile of a George Costanza. And there you go. Like,
yeah, he's probably like a cousin or something like that.
Yeah, twice removed. Yeah.
Twice removed. He probably got into trouble in New York, you know, and then had to go down to Florida. Actually, hey, you know, the Costanzas, they're retired, right? And
right.
Del Boca Vista, they're in Florida.
Oh my God.
Oh,
the connections.
The connections here.
Oh my, this is, I'm mind fucked right now. Wow.
Barbara, she's just saying, well, that was just a joke. It was just a joke. Kevin's going on about, you know, did you ever have this party at your house? A party called Special Places? Was it sexual in nature? Was this game sexual in nature? And sorry, I'm just gonna indulge in it. I'm sorry. And she says we only played it once, and it sounds like what, like spin the bottle, 7 minutes in heaven, making out in the closet kind of thing.
Easy.
Yeah. She says she only played it once, and Kevin says you made it up. You told those other kids to lie, to falsely say that Geddes had hurt them, had touched them as well. She says, I didn't want to be the only one. And man, that's heavy.
That's crazy.
That's heavy. She didn't want to be the only one that was molested. So I don't know, man. That's
too much.
That's heavy stuff. And her father is like, Lomax, you son of a bitch. You know, he's getting all pissed off in the back. So they're dismissed for the day. And then we meet Mary Ann. Charlize Theron rocking this role, man. She is fantastic. And she's got this blonde curly hair and she's looking sharp. She's like, come on, baby, you need a drink. You know, she's got this accent.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
It's really cute. It's really endearing. And I think that she really pulls it off as an actress, where Lomax is a little weird, but at the same time, you know, it's forgivable. So they go to the bar with Larry, that reporter. He keeps asking about the case, and she's like, we're not talking about the damn case anymore. So they just start doing shots, pours a bunch, and they're dancing, and Kevin's biting Mary Ann on the ass. And those two are just wild for each other.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can tell they are absolutely enamored by each other. This band is playing this song called Show Me Your Tattoo, which I don't know if it has any meaning or not, but I remember like it's pretty cool. Pretty cool song.
Yeah.
It's there. It's all right. It's all right. So we meet Lehman Heath, and I can't remember this actor's name. I keep forgetting to go back and put in all these actors' names. But he's really great. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He's a representative for Milton, Chadwick, and Waters, this New York law firm. And he says, come help us pick a jury. And Kevin's drunk. He's like, hey, man, you're pretty damn good. The card's great. And the whole black thing, you being black. He thinks it's just a prank. And he's just like, here, just take a look at the dollar signs on this piece of paper. And whatever it is, it's got to be a lot. You can see it on Kevin's face. And I like this silent acting here as they're looking at each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like you can tell that his decision is already made just by him looking at that piece of paper.
Oh, yeah. Like, you can tell that he was totally content with his Gainesville practice and getting all those win after win after win. Now this surprise shows up on his doorstep, and it presents this whole new opportunity for him that he had probably never really considered. And so off we go. So let's take me to church, baby. Now we're in Gainesville, this little Gainesville church. And this church looks similar to the church I grew up in, but it didn't have nearly as many people. This place is packed. And I think we had maybe 15 people in a building that size. But this is quite a motley crew, this congregation. As the camera pans over them, it's all types of people. And Kevin, he's hanging back by the front door, and he's waiting for his mama. And because she's there, and this church band. I don't know, when the song wraps up, it feels like they're just like they are in Madison Square Garden playing or something. Like they're just pulling
singing praise.
Oh yeah. And this hymn, let's talk about this. So I looked this up before we started recording because it had always bothered me that I never really understood what the song was about. I didn't really get the lyrics, and so I'm gonna tell you, okay?
This is going to be great.
So the hymn is called Romans 16:19 by Chris Tomlin. And just listen to this, okay?
Oh, God.
I didn't count the words, but there are probably
Jeez.
30 words in this song. Okay. The lyrics are Romans 16:19 says, you say that 4 times, and then be excellent at what is good, stay innocent of evil twice. Okay. Got to say that twice. And then, and the God of peace will soon crush Satan, and God will crush him underneath your feet. Sing that twice. And the God of peace will crush Satan underneath your feet. Sing that twice. And Romans 16:19 says 4 times. That's the hymn.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know when that was written, but
so much thought process.
I know. Like, I mean, I grew up in a small rural church, and I've never heard of that ever in my life. Anything close to that.
Wow, man. They must have just sat down, had like a couple of beers, and like, you know what? Let's just do this thing and get out of here. And that's how that song was made.
Yeah, like probably just give me a hymnal and let me go to the index. Let me find something that talks about Satan. You know?
Oh, well, then they find the first one. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so outside, Kevin's talking to his mom. He's telling her about the job, and she's not liking that. Working on Sunday, falling is Babylon. And Marianne is a little ways away. She's on the phone by the car. She reluctantly wishes him, good luck. And as he and Marianne are about to leave, she's still on the phone, but he comes up behind her and he bites her on the ear and he pulls her earring off and hands it to her. Takes it out of her mouth and hands it to her. And I love that. But according to Taylor Hackford, Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron worked that out on their own. That was all improv.
Wow. Like, how do you do that? I want to know how to do that. Just,
Yeah, but it's such a genuine moment because.
Oh my God, it's awesome.
It's really, really good. Marianne says, we better have a baby to get your mom off her backs. And Kevin's like, let her sweat it a little. And so they take off. And we arrive in New York City. Jury selection. And this New York attorney who's talking to the jurors. I'm blanking on his name. It's George Weiner. This is Colonel Sanders from Spaceballs. And Kevin and Heath, they call him over and they say, okay, get rid of that one, and that one. And he's called number 6. That was my first choice. Kevin says that's his first pass. He's going, no, just Catholic school teacher, believes in human frailty. And he's like, no. There's something wrong about her. She wants to get revenge and all this stuff. And Meisel's like, that's the attorney. He's like, well, how the hell do you know that? I don't know. It's like, all right, you stop this happy horse shit or I walk. And he doesn't hesitate. He's like, walk. Meisel just says, if I lose with your jury, you do the explaining. And condescendingly taps him on the cheek. And this scene gives us a little bit of mystery about Kevin. Like, he has some kind of sixth sense about jury selection and about people and about, the vibe that they put off and stuff like that. He's able to read them in a very specific sort of way. Like, we have this very innocent looking school teacher with the glasses with a little chain and a little sweater and looking so innocent, but he sees beneath that. There's this black gentleman. He tells Meisel, you might see a brother with an attitude, but I see a man who sleeps with a shotgun under his bed and makes his own clothes and stuff like that. And it's kind of wild. Like, as an audience member, you're like, well, shit, how does he know all this?
Right. Gives us a backstory on why he's been winning so much on his previous trials.
Right. So we could assume that it's nothing magical or supernatural about it. It's simply that he has cultivated this skill, and that's what makes him so damn good, right? And so we're getting a little taste of that right now. Kevin leaves the courtroom. Someone's watching. It's John Milton. We'll later find out. This is Al Pacino, and he disappears into the subway. And I love these haunting time-lapse shots of New York. We get lots of these, like, and the music and the sound design. I don't know. There's a lot of those. Like, what did you make of those scenes?
Well, Brandon, when talking to me, you don't have to think twice about the music aspect because I'm going to just start dissertations on that itself. But this, it's like these overlap shots of New York gives us a different perspective than what we've been seeing with Kevin. It's more of a supernatural perspective. Or like this kind
of an like out of time perspective.
Right. Like one day is like 5 seconds in this certain point of view. Right.
I mean, conventionally this is to show the passage of time, but it does so in a way that is very stylistic, and it's not used just a few times. It's used quite a few times, and it's to show New York, I think, as a character in the movie. Just like when we were talking about Schumacher's Falling Down, about L.A. being such a presence in that movie and being a character all its own. I think New York itself it's embodying something pretty dark. Or it seems like that you have all this beautiful architecture, but we know there's something darker underneath it.
Right. And New York is the perfect place for this to have happened, because even though, yeah, like you said, there is just something so spectacular about the city, the amount of internal chaos that's going in with that whole environment. And when you like to dig deep into this whole internal chaos, it turns really, really dark into something that you think was just so magnificent.
Yeah. Yeah. Kevin, he arrives at, is this a hotel room? Is it just an apartment? It's kind of where they're staying while they're just during the jury selection. But anyway, Mary Ann is there, and he's looking glum. He's undoing his tie. She tries to console him. She thinks it was all a bust that he lost. And then Kevin gives it up that, not fucking guilty. And so she jumps up and down on the couch like Tom Cruise. and then I'm too damn good. And then we're off to Milton, Chadwick, and Waters' headquarters, and got a hell of a view just from the lobby here. And we learned that they have a lot of international offices, and they represent 25 foreign countries. Heath is there. He's kind of giving him the rundown. A woman catches Kevin's eye. This is Christabella, and she's speaking Italian on her little headset in her office. She sees him. This shot slows down, way down, and she shuts the door and closes the blinds on him. But this is a really interesting stylistic choice of slowing this shot down. Like, we know there's going to be something about this woman, and it's not just that he is interested in her in an intimate or a sexual way. It's that we're going in knowing that this is the thriller, and we're already curious. What the hell is it about this woman, right?
Right.
And this is played by Connie Nielsen, and her character speaks Spanish in the Italian release of the film, and Italian in all the others, so it's kind of funny. But she's in fact Danish, and this was her first American film.
Wow.
The more you know. Kevin walks into a kind of austere waiting room with a little fireplace. Milton comes in, introduces himself. Now, the character of John Milton is named for John Milton, who was the author of Paradise Lost, and it was this epic poem about man's fall from God's grace. And when Lomax is in Milton's office later in the film, we'll get to that, he says, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven," and that is from Book 1, line 263 of Paradise Lost, so that comes from the book. And this is a sort of interview, I suppose. Some small talk at first, Pacino smoking. All the bad people smoke in this movie. That's something that will play a role later on. But we're learning more about Kevin here. He was a prosecutor. He had 64 straight convictions, but now he is setting people free instead of putting them away. And he says that takes some getting used to. And so, okay, I know we've already talked a little bit about this accent, but what do you make of it? What was your first impression of Kevin's accent?
It reminded me of this poster child Southern boy who's never done anything wrong in his life kind of accent. But a little stronger than what seems natural, if that makes sense. Because I can do the, "Hey y'all, how's it going?" all day long. I can do that all day long. But Keanu Reeves, God bless this man, he does his best. And for that, I give him a grade A effort.
I wish you could all see Joseph's face right now. It's
like, oh yeah.
It's saying more than his words, I promise you. Yeah. But no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, because I'm still conflicted about it. I was born and raised in the South, and I did know that Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron went to Florida, like they went to the Gainesville area and like talked to people and tried to develop their characters and stuff like that. But I really wonder, like, what exactly was it that Keanu Reeves latched onto during that visit, because it just became this very, very strange pseudo-Southern accent. And we'll get to some of those highlights as we get more into this movie. But this is a really great scene here where Milton and Kevin are filling each other out. Milton asks about the Geddes case. "So the Geddes case. Now I hear you are brilliant." It's like, oh yeah. Oh, the prosecutor dropped the ball, Oh, really? So you think your man was guilty?
Right.
So I didn't say that. What'd you say? Let me put it this way. I began the case with a clear conscience. Milton's wanting to know his secret, and Kevin gives it up. He's like, was it men's room, second floor men's room, Duval County Courthouse, spent 5 years listening to juries deliberate through a little hole in the wall. And Milton thinks it's great. So, "I love it. I'll love it all you want. Just don't repeat it. I'm not exactly sure the Florida Bar Association would appreciate it. My lips are sealed." And but he's like, "You don't really want to go back to Florida. Like, just walk with me." So they go out on this patio for
I guess that's what you could call it.
I don't know a better word for it, but this space was actually on the 50th floor of a New York City building. And the stage was 8 feet away from the edge of the building. And so you might think that this is blue screen or faked in somehow. This is real.
Wow.
They were really on top of this building. So for those of you who haven't seen it in a while, so it's like like there's no railings or anything like that. It's this, I guess you describe it as like an infinity pool kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a body of water that's spilling over the side of the building. And so they're just out there, chit-chatting. And Milton's asking about Kevin's father, who he never knew, asking about his mother, said, yeah, she's a Christian, works in a upholstery plant. And then Milton just says, behold, I send you out as sheep amidst the wolves.
What a line.
Yeah, it's great. But you're like, okay, well, that's a little weird. I don't really see the connection there. It's like, oh, yeah, so they say. So anyway, we get to talking about the job a little bit more. Kevin wants to know, why do you need a criminal department? He says, well, we have clients. They break the law like everybody else. Don't want to send their business across the street. They're negotiating, always. And we see Milton step towards the edge of the building, and we see his boots. And so, okay, what did you think when you first saw that?
He could have done a better job with his taste in boots. I was like, all right, you either got those on a Saturday at Goodwill, or he it was a hand-me-down from somebody in his family.
So you think he's had those from way back, like when he was poor, when he was working as a waiter in the restaurant of the Tremont Hotel in 1966. Those were the boots that he had.
The day
they were hand-me-downs from the thrift store Goodwill.
He had those POSs on, and when Kevin's mom was conceived.
Oh my God. I mean, I thought, okay, two things. One, it immediately told me this is his father because he's wearing boots too.
Oh God.
And also, like the type of boots he's wearing, they almost make his feet look like hooves, I think.
Yes.
So
oh my God, yes.
That's probably that probably was a factor in the wardrobe decision there. And so we end this scene with Kevin saying, when do we talk about money? Money. That's the easy part. Then we skip off to Carnegie Hill, Fifth Avenue, best jogging in New York. And this apartment building, it's for employees of the firm. And Heath is showing him around, him and Marianne. Says, you must have made quite an impression. This apartment is more of a partner's perk and family building. And so Lehman and his wife, Jackie, Heath, they show Marianne and Kevin this apartment, this awesome apartment. And says they're neighbors. They share the floor. And Milton is up in the tower. This apartment is 3 bedrooms, and Marianne is like, you know what that means? Babies. She's baby fucking crazy in this movie. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And that in itself is really interesting, especially just coming off of watching Rosemary's Baby. Like it just, I don't know, there's just something there that resonated even more powerfully with me. And like as we get further on, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm just getting, for the record, I'm getting so excited, like I can barely think straight, and I'm feeling really good today. So
when Brandon says this is in his top 15 of all time favorites, I do. Means it, guys.
So as they're looking around, Jackie says to Marianne, it took us 6 years to get in here. It's just a passing comment, but it's like, are you jealous much?
Like
that they just waltzed in here and you had to wait 6 years? It says something about Jackie's character. Kevin tells Marianne he's only going to do this. He's only going to take this job if she's totally on board. And she's like, no, let's just go back to Florida and get a little shack on Gulf Shores. And then, maybe you can knock me up. And it's like, are you shitting me? They're in this together. They make that commitment right here. Here's a very small scene where Kevin is introduced to the whole team at this it's a giant conference table. And the first guy to introduce himself that we won't hear from ever again in this movie, he says his name is Tadashi Osumi Media. That's his area. This guy is the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
My gosh.
He's the man in the costume. He's not the voice, I don't think. And a couple other folks he meets. And then finally, Eddie Barzoon, who's the managing director. And this is played by one of my favorite character actors.
Same.
Jeremy Jones. He's so great. I mean, Beetlejuice, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Deadwood, just so many great movies and TV shows. And we ran into him when we did Sleepy Hollow. He was the what is he, like a pastor or cleric or something like that. Reverend Steenwick. Reverend Steenwick.
Yep. Also, guys, if you haven't seen or listened to our episodes, Sleepy Hollow, please go check it out. You'll definitely get some laughs in there.
Oh, you'll get lots of laughs in that one, especially towards the end when we kind of peter out.
I got some hiccups actually during that episode.
Yeah, you did. You did get hiccups. I remember that. Yeah, that was early on. So then Christabella comes in and sits down. She's like in international relations or something like that. And Milton notices Kevin noticing her and says, there it is, the whole team. Welcome to Milton, Chadwick, and Waters. And Kevin meets his assistant, Pam Garrity. Immediately he's like, here you go. This is your first case, the Moyes case. And we get this video. It's of a police raid. This guy, Philippe Moyes, played by Delroy Lindo, is sacrificing a goat in his subterranean home. And Kevin says, this is a health code case and it's a loser. It's a test. Pam's like, isn't everything? And so...
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Yeah. It's like, I can't remember my impression of all this when I first saw it in theaters, but now it's like there's so many clues as to what's going on that it almost feels like now that they're beating you over the head with it. But maybe that's just me. It's hard for me to look at this movie objectively now.
Well, I mean, because when you see it multiple times, after the first time, you're like, okay, I have a grasp, and then you see it a second time or a third time. Like, for instance, we were just talking about Carnegie Hill and, Fifth Avenue, best jogging in New York. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a foreshadowing because of what is going to happen later in this movie in that same vicinity. Mm-hmm. It's all about the little things in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. And then we get Marianne. She's shopping. She's buying these fabric panels. What is this? I don't know. I didn't know until yesterday, like what it was that was even happening in this scene. She's buying these fabric panels and says, this is a damask, blah, 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 blah. He says, well, how much is this? Price? it's about $2,000 a panel. And she's like, oh my goodness. And then Kevin shows up. We'll take it at $1,400. And
I don't know. What are they?
Later on, we see her, like she has stuff like taped up on the walls, like for decorating. So I don't know if I honestly have no idea. But whatever it is, it's stupid that this is $2,000. That's all that matters.
Amen.
So Kevin goes to meet with Mr. Moyes in some kind of subterranean basement. I'm not really sure what part of New York this is, but as he's going into the building, there's this old blind witch woman standing outside, and there's this homeless guy or some guy on the street too that is spooked by her, and she does something and the dog freaks out. I don't know. It's like, so you just know there's some weird shit going on at this part of town. And this boy takes Kevin down, and there are all these candles in the darkness, all this voodoo stuff everywhere. And we meet Mr. Moyes, great Delroy Lindo. I love him so much. Great actor. And he's talking about this sacrifice as, and the blood is a spiritual currency. And Kevin says, well, I need your help, help me out with your defense. Moyes says, well, who will prosecute us? And Kevin tells him it's this guy named Murto, Arnold Murto. And he says, with this tongue, we create silence. And he gets this cow's tongue from the fridge and he just throws some nails down beside it. And he's twisting this tongue. And he's like, okay, you can go now.
Okay. Maybe it's just me, but I've never seen a cow's tongue before. And that thing looked like a whole muscle of a leg.
Yeah, it did.
Something that you stick on the femur. It's just, that's the thickest tongue I've ever seen in my life. Quite impressive.
Yeah, I agree. It's ginormous, and it does leave you with, what does this mean? What's going to happen next? And it pays off fairly quickly. So Kevin's working late, and Marianne and Jackie, they're hanging out, and Jackie is supervising. I don't know.
She's being picky while she's drinking, and she's like, not that one, not that,
Right, because Marianne is painting her wall. She's putting on a little bit of green, and she's trying to decide what color green, and she's asking Jackie, what do you think about this? And at first, when she starts out, you can tell that Marianne's really excited because she'll paint it, and she's like, Caribbean green. Like, what do you think of this? Isn't this magic? And Jackie's like, no, not with your complexion, not this stuff. So we go through like 4 or 5 different shades, and every time it's some comment from Jackie that's negative. Slowly, you can tell that Marianne's getting more and more frustrated. And finally, she puts down this really light. It's the lightest lime green I've ever seen. It's like a sorbet green. That might have been it. I don't know. And Jackie's just like, what? Marianne, it's your walls. Do what you want.
Like, how would you feel if someone just told you that after going through 5 different shades of greens? Like,
Yeah, and in the moment, it's so strange. And they're doing some really cool stuff with the editing, with these wipes. So whenever she runs the roller across the wall, that creates like a new frame, like for the next shot. That's pretty cool. It's a little bit of a gimmick, but it's kind of cool. But I like that this is, let's throw out spoilers here. This is where we see people intentionally wearing her down.
Yeah.
You know, and in this scene, it's a little unusual because we don't really know what she's doing, what Jackie is doing, but we see that this is going to culminate, you know, in all of these moments where Marianne is going to become more and more fragmented and insane.
Right. Well, we see Marianne at the beginning of this movie like this very innocent wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
This picturesque wife who's always supportive of her husband and just what you'd want to see. And she's very caring, outgoing when she needs to be. But we see that the differences of city life, I think, and the atmosphere that she was forced into really starts to wear her down with the elements that she's dealing with. And that was just a beautiful beginning of what's to come.
And because it's so subtle, I think, at least in the beginning. We see Kevin, he's eating dinner in his office. He's just eating fried chicken or a burger or something. And Marianne she's eating too. She's probably eating takeout as well. And she's going through all of these like wallpaper samples, all this stuff on her walls. And she's just fucking pissed, rips the shit off the walls and goes over to Jackie's. I honestly, if I was her, I would not go over to hang out with her.
No, that's scary. It's bad vibes.
Yeah, after she was being so condescending and judgmental about my palate for my apartment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's starved for social interaction, like, you know, because Kevin's not there. He's never at home. So she goes, has some wine with Jackie. She asks Jackie, how do you do it? And she's like, well, if I want to see Lehman, I make an appointment and just get used to being alone. Like, take a look around you, honey. Like, you have 3 choices. You can work, you can play, or you can breed.
Didn't she call it the Holy Trinity?
The Holy Trinity. That's right. Yeah. We're getting a sense, too, about the wives, even though this is the only wife that we've met so far, just about their relationship with their husband. It's more of a relationship with their money.
It's very sketchy.
Yeah. It's very sketchy. Yes, it is. So Kevin's in court, and he's working the Moyes case, and he tells the judge, here's a veal roast, USDA approved and stamped. Mr. Moyes killed a goat because of his religious beliefs, his constitutionally protected religious beliefs. You know, it's not as common to say circumcision, and we look at the judge, and we can tell that strikes a note with him. And then when the prosecutor, Murto, tries to object, he starts coughing, and he can't stop. Kevin, he looks at Mr. Moyes, who is looking at Mr. Murto. We know he's doing his voodoo thing, right?
Right.
But the cow tongue's got some nails in it. I don't know if he's doing this. Is he doing this under the table? Like, does he have the tongue in one hand and some nails in the other? How did he get that through security? I don't know. Maybe he did it before. I have so many questions.
He probably had that little boy that led Kevin
in.
Him. Yeah. He probably had that little boy like, all right, at this time, when you do this, then, and the little boy's like, oh, I'll just go ham. And he just starts, beating the nails down on the tongue.
Yes, I could imagine that. Like maybe he's got a little walkie on him or something, and the kid's like in the parking lot with the other walkie, and he's listening for the right times. Yeah, when you hear him, you hear he's about to object. Bam, ram a nail in there. And
I could only wish to be a bystander walking past a car, seeing a little kid trying beating some meat in the car.
Okay, I think that came out a little differently probably than you intended, but funny nevertheless.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the judge, he's old. He's getting impatient. He's like, let's wrap this up. So Kevin says, the police timed the raid to catch Moyes doing this thing. Here's a document that protects kosher butchering. And so let's just dismiss everything. The judge seems pretty okay. He's like, all right, Mr. Murto, you got anything to say? And the guy just stands up. He's like trying. He's like, Your Honor. And the judge is just like, for God's sake, man. That's one of my favorite lines because it's so funny to me. He's like, for God's sake, man. Get a hold of yourself. Yeah. And so Kevin, he's looking over at Moyes, but according to the director's commentary on the DVD, after they finished filming this scene, the actor who plays Mr. Murto, this is Daniel Oreski. After they finished filming this scene where he coughs violently for several minutes, the entire cast and crew broke out into applause.
Oh my gosh.
Because it must have, I don't know how many takes they did, but I bet having to cough that long was pretty brutal.
I mean, you could see on his face that like his face was getting red.
Yeah, he's like, oh, fuck, this is take 7. And so right after, it's Milton's there to congratulate him on a win. Philippe Moyes is satisfied. Milton and Kevin, they go have a walk around Chinatown. I like this scene a lot because we learn a little bit more about Milton as a person. He says that Moyes has $15 million in the bank, but he's living in this subterranean shithole. Kevin's a little surprised, and Milton's like, what do you think he's paying us in? Goat's blood? You know?
But
he tells Kevin, we're billing you out at $400 an hour. So that, I looked it up. This is about $637 an hour today.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. I have no idea about the legal system and what lawyers get paid. I don't know how retainers work. I don't know any of that stuff. But one of our listeners is a lawyer. So Ryan, if you have any input, like you should write in or call us on the hotline. Send us something on Twitter. Tell us some insights about this movie. Milton tells him, don't get cocky. You know, look at me. Underestimated from day one. You'd never think I was a master of the universe now, would you? You're like, It's like, we get it, dude. You're the devil. We know.
Stop bragging about yourself.
But he's kind of poking fun at Kevin a little bit, playfully. He's like, you know, what's with that Florida stud thing? Excuse me, ma'am. Did I leave my boots under your bed? You know, and he's like, you're missing what I have. You know, he's like, there's this girl who just fucked me 40 ways from Sunday. We're done, and she's walking to the bathroom. She's trying to walk, and she looks back, and it's me. Not the Trojan army just fucked her. Little old me. And I just love that. I mean, he's always talking about fucking, but, you know, so he's dirty and crass in that way, but he's making the point that, well, as he says, like right here, he says, I'm the hand up Mona Lisa's skirt. I'm a surprise, Kevin. They don't see me coming. That image of him being the hand up Mona Lisa's skirt. Let's talk about this. What do you make of that? I'm gonna throw that ball right into your court.
Well, first of all, the line. Let me just talk about this line. I'm the hand up Mona Lisa's skirt. Okay, like, because we all see Mona Lisa as this basically a goddess in this portrait of a painting, right? Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh my god, like everyone knows Mona Lisa. You know, for him to say that he's basically in control of that in itself says that he is a part of a much bigger picture than just somebody. Than just one somebody, right?
Yeah, and that's why she's smiling.
Yes,
just that little smile. And I love that so much. I don't know if that came from the book or Gilroy, or I don't know where that came from, but that is just a piece of gold right there. I think. But that's a recurring thing about being a surprise, or don't let people see you coming. I mean, that is the devil's MO. You know, is
the surprise, like
right.
Everything that we think of on Earth that is materialistic, that comes at us at different angles, basically it's a surprise, a test / surprise, expecting the unexpected. Beautiful screenplay.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
Yeah. So they come across this old Chinese guy with this chicken in this box, and Milton is overjoyed to show this to Kevin. He's like, I got to pick and choose when I do the voice, but he says, there's the chicken, plays tic-tac-toe, never loses. He's famous. Never loses, like you. This Chinese guy, and I love pointing out these little roles that you see in the background. This is Kim Chan, and whose screen acting career started in 1951. And I know him best from The Fifth Element and as Uncle Benny Chan from Lethal Weapon 4. He was the bad guy in that. He's just one of those faces that you always happen to see every now and then. But yeah, just you see Milton speaking in fluent Chinese to the man. But it's just a great little detail. I mean, it's just to show that he's savvy, you know, and he's worldly and intelligent, but is also just having fun and is very much a New Yorker, you know. So they're about to go into the subway, and he says, you know, stay in the subways, Kevin. You know, stay in the trenches. You know, that's the only way I travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I mean, all this stuff, and there's just so many hints now that it's hard. It's hard. But so Kevin comes home, Mary Ann has repainted the apartment, and Kevin's looking at it, and he's like, you know, like, oh, I don't know about that kind of thing. So she's getting ready. We got to be at Barzoon's party in a few minutes. So that's just a few floors up. It's like, oh, what about that third bedroom? And she says, oh, it was going to be a nursery, but you have to be home long enough to knock me up. So I'm thinking of turning it into a law library. And he's like, Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
Baby. So they're on the elevator. They're on the way up to Barzoon's floor. And she says, promise me you won't leave me alone. And he does. And so they walk out, and they're immediately greeted by Eddie's wife, Diana Barzoon. And she's like, there you are. She's clapping and everything. And introduces herself. Eddie shows up, says, hey, this big party, I do 2 of them a year. This is the top of the food chain. These are all prospects. And let me introduce you to this person and that person. Here are these Republican senators of New York. I think those were actually the Republican senators of New York at the time.
Pretty sure.
Alphonse, can't remember his name. But anyway, should be noted that then businessman Donald Trump was mentioned briefly by Pam Garrity in the Barzoon party scene. She said, quote, Donald Trump was supposed to be here tonight, but he had business emergency. Probably Mort Zuckerman. And I had to look it up. He was just some billionaire real estate guy, too. But
if only they knew like where Trump would be in a couple decades. It's funny because this has 2 Trump references in it. One's a little more implicit, but it's funny because I just went back and re-listened to our episode on American Psycho. And there are a couple of Trump references in that movie as well. So Kevin gets pulled away by Heath, and Marianne's left with Pam and Jackie, and Christabella is there too. And Milton shows up, and Marianne is hanging out with Diana and Jackie. They're doing this kind of weird, the blocking is kind of weird. Like they're on this stairwell thing. It looks like a shot from Charlie's Angels or something. And he walks up and he knows who Marianne is and introduces himself to Marianne and says, oh, you're already swimming with the sharks. and okay, so in this scene, we get these shots of people who work at the firm talking to other people, and they're saying odd things like, go talk to him, hear what he has to say, just get it on tape. Or, we're going to, railroad these guys whenever we talk to them. Or I don't know. What did you make of all these little snippets that we're kind of seeing? It was a vibe of gossip, a very much a vibe of gossip. And we're going to see this later on during a funeral procession as well. Egocentristic, I'm better than you, or she's inferior to me. That kind of a vibe. Just a head like a head honcho, flamboyant. You know what I mean?
It's like you can tell they have probably seedy business practices.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's odd, like that they kept that in there because this movie was 30 minutes longer in its initial cut.
Wow.
And they're on the DVD, but the director is talking over it. So you don't really get to hear the dialogue and there are no subtitles. And so that's a little frustrating. So all of that stuff, when you watch it, you're like, yeah, I can see why they cut that out. I don't really need any of that. But these scenes, I feel like they had them in there for an important reason. I think that's probably why, just to characterize this business, this firm a little bit more.
Well, you can also tell that these people are fake. There's a lot of fake qualities.
Yeah, and they're all smoking, and Pam makes a joke. She's with just something, oh, Marianne, did you get to meet the senator? And I was married to him. Really? I'm kidding. Just all that little stuff. So Marianne and Milton, they go have a chat off to themselves. They're sitting on this couch, a little away from the party. And she's really opening up to him. And probably because she really hasn't had a chance to open up to anybody because Kevin's been gone. And she says, the worst thing about having a father was having mine. And he says, I can relate. I can't believe me. You're the devil, we know.
Oh my God. An offense.
And so meanwhile, Kevin's following Christabella. And then, so we go back between Kevin and Christabella and Marianne and Milton. And Milton says, he wants to say something about her hair. And she's like, okay. It's like, it doesn't belong to you. And it's not you. You should pull your hair back. And she's like, right now? Right here? He's like, well, I would love to do it. But if I did, people would be watching and might think that we're fucking or something, which is a comment that catches her off guard. But then he immediately disarms her again. It's like, please, is that so terrible? And so she does. She pulls her hair back. She smiles. And this is a great line, too. He says, it's fun to be right.
Yeah, well, you can. I mean, this is a perfect example of how you can see that Milton really gets a girl going, right? So, like, automatically, in a matter of minutes, he is just full on got the girl's attention and just 100% focused on him, you know?
So he's being very charming and charismatic and classy, but he's also very attuned to her. It's very invasive almost that he's so in her head, or he knows so much about her and her body. You know, the physicality of it. It's not just in her head, but her body, like knowing like that you're better than this. And so in a way, he's also starting to break her down in a way by, I guess, making her self-conscious about those kinds of things.
Right.
But yeah, Kevin's still on the trail of Christabella. Then we go back, and Milton and Marianne are looking in the mirror together, and they're really close. It's a great shot. And he's like, you got to cut your hair. Like, can you imagine anybody that you just met telling you should pull your hair back, and then you got to cut your hair? And then we get this beautifully written thing. I wish I'd have written it all out, but just go watch the movie, guys. It's
honestly, yeah.
But it's all about her shoulders being the front lines of a woman's mystique, and her neck has all the mystery of a border town, a no man's land in that battle between the mind and the body.
Right.
And it's wooing her. It's very charming. And she's kind of seduced in the moment.
I mean, she's into it.
Oh, she's very into it. And he tells her, you know, your natural color would really bring out your eyes. He smiles a little bit, pleased with himself. And she smiles. And it is that I'm into it smile. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the
keep talking smile.
Because whatever it is she's feeling, she hasn't felt it since she got to New York.
Right.
And so Kevin and Christabella, they are on the terrace. She's having a smoke. This is a bad blue screen shot. But they're on the terrace and talking about this view. She had this view. And Marianne's looking for him, by the way. But she keeps going, have you seen Kevin? Have you seen Kevin? And, he promised her that he wouldn't leave her. And
look where he is.
Yeah, look where he's at. He's up there with a woman. What was that? And there's one of the deleted scenes is where Marianne is looking for Kevin at the party, and someone redirects her to the library, and she finds three people engaged in a threesome and leaves when they invite her to join in. So this scene didn't make the final cut, but seeing this level of debauchery in Milton's company could explain why she's so suspicious of Kevin throughout the rest of the movie. But Christabella and Kevin, it's just so bad. Like, I don't know, it made me so... Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad.
Because she's seducing him, she's flirting and saying, is your wife a jealous woman, Mr. Lomax? To which he doesn't reply.
He's going with it.
He's absolutely going with it.
And I'm just like, dude, you made a promise. You keep your promise. He was such a good husband at the beginning of this movie. I'm not doing this unless you say so. We're in this together. And then he just leaves us on this liminal space of a cliff, just hanging off the precipice. And we're just like, dude, just be a man, get back to your wife. But
absolutely. And she is not making it easy for him.
No.
But she's like, bet you like to be on top, huh? Of the situation, I mean. And then he bites right in. He's like, it depends on the view. Which I gotta say, I don't think she's that attractive myself. Compared to Marianne.
There's an obvious choice.
Yeah,
but it's fine. Not judging. But
not judging. That's just personal opinion.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what he sees in her over Marianne. But I mean, Marianne is so lively and innocent, but there's something about Christabella that's mysterious and dark, and he wants to know what that's all about, I think.
Right.
So Milton joins them and he says, I see the future of this law firm. That wasn't very good. And this is kind of weird too, because whenever he comes up to her, he touches her. He rubs his hand on her ass or her leg or something.
Like a sensual introduction every single time he walks in the room with her in it.
I really want to know what they say to each other. It's Italian, I think. But anyway, she goes away. Milton tells Kevin, we need to talk, get Barzoon and Heath and meet me at my place upstairs. Do it quickly but quietly. We're in Milton's office. There's this big-ass sculpture behind the desk we'll talk about more later. And he's talking in different languages on these phone calls. And so Kevin's there with Heath and Barzoon. And Kevin's looking around and he's asking, is this it? It's like, yep. Where does he sleep? Who says he sleeps? Where does he fuck? everywhere. Ha ha ha. You know?
Right. I do want to point out some very obvious signs because this is the first time we see his room, not necessarily a house, but his room. There's an altar. He has an altar of a table, right?
Yeah.
Everything's basically black or metallic. You have to have a fire, that's pretty.
Yeah.
But like we're definitely going to talk about later, is what is behind the altar.
Mm-hmm.
That is the centerpiece of this entire room. So I can't wait to talk about that more.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a mention of this guy, Alex Cullen, a client of theirs that's in trouble again. Milton asks Heath how many hours they billed Cullen for last year, and Heath replies, 16,242. And if you average 16,000 divided by 24 hours in a day is 66.6666667. We could say 666 is the number of the devil. Coincidence or not,
wow.
You decide, folks. Milton tells us that Alexander Cullen has just been charged with murdering his wife, her stepson, and a maid. I don't know why I love saying, and a maid. And so it just happened tonight. Pam's out making bail. Eddie is like, oh shit, this is big. We need to get Mizell right away. And Milton's like, nope, I want Kevin on this one. And Eddie says, oh no, it's crazy. You're dreaming. This triple homicide. John, you're the master, but I just don't see this happening. He just doesn't have that confidence in Kevin yet. But Milton's like, I want you on board, Eddie. We got the inside track. It's ours to lose. Got the best damn tri-lawyer in the city. Eddie's like, well, you tell it to Cullen. So now I want Kevin to tell him. And Kevin jumps on it. At first he's like, maybe Eddie has a point. But he's like, no, we can get this case. And so he gets on the phone with Pam. She calls, gets home late. He's kind of excited. He's buzzing with this triple homicide, big case. And Marianne's having a drink. She's got her hair wrapped. She's just sitting in the window in her robe, really pissed off. Kevin's super excited about the case. And she's like, you bailed on me, and slams the door, broke your promise. And go sleep on the fucking couch.
Right. And this is where we really see that she's going downhill.
Yeah. And we can see their relationship starting to fracture here, especially because not only did he break his promise, but he is very much focused on his career, and and she is on the periphery, and he doesn't see it. He thinks he's there for her, but he doesn't realize how much of his job is his purpose. This is what he does. As Milton says later in the movie, acquittal after acquittal after acquittal. So we arrive at this high rise. It's under construction. We get Barzoon, Kevin, and Milton, and they're meeting with Cullen, and they're trying to sell Cullen on Kevin as his attorney. And Craig T. Nelson plays Alexander Cullen, and he is great in this role. Good old
Phenomenal.
Coach, man. He is fantastic. They take turns kind of trying to persuade Cullen, and Kevin steps in to sell himself. Eddie's a little uncomfortable. We learn that there are prints on the murder weapon and another print on the wall in blood. And I touched the goddamn wall. So Cullen's really, he says he's innocent. He didn't do anything. That when he went in, he went to pick up the murder weapon and bit down in a particular way and all this sort of thing that we'll see in the next scene. But we learn Cullen has a stepdaughter he can't see now. Milton goes in to make the final sell. Cullen reluctantly agrees. Like, okay, let's meet tomorrow alone, and you better be every fucking inch as good as he says you are. It's good. It's intense. It's a great, and this is a great spot where they shot this high rise, not even finished yet. So you just see the skyline. And at the beginning of the scene, he throws these newspapers off the side, and the whole first shot, you see those newspapers floating over the city. It's really cool.
Right.
It's really cool.
He just littered.
Yeah, he just littered.
No, but it really sets the plot. I love this scene because it really sets the plot in a more intense way. Mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
So Marianne now has a new look. She's a brunette and has short hair, straight hair. And she's going shopping with Jackie and Diana, and they're spending their husband's money. They're in the changing room having some wine. And Marianne is still very much a fish out of water now. And Jackie takes her top off, and she's admiring her breasts in the mirror and asks Marianne if she thinks they're real or not. It's like, oh, feel them. And so... And she reluctantly sticks her hand out, but Jackie grabs her hand and puts it on her breast.
Right.
And there's something about that too. The physicality of it. It's not sensual, but what's the word?
It's like
it's this kind of taboo contact.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
I don't know. There's something there that they're playing with. The sexuality of it. I don't know. There's something cool there. After that, Jackie drops a dress over her head and looks at Marianne, and for a moment becomes a fucking demon.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that scared the shit out of me in the theater because I was not expecting that.
It was out of the blue. I even had the same moment of crisis internally, because then you realize, I mean, personally for me, I saw it as a whole seductive type of scene. Where it was not so much of sensual, but it was just the mere seductive quality of a demon in a materialistic world, just in that little scene. Just get yourself out of the room.
Right. And it was subtle. It wasn't a full-on transformation. It was just a little distortion of the face and a sound, like a growl kind of thing.
Right.
And then, but not only that, but we see it's like there are these hands under her skin, like caressing her form, her shape, her skeleton, what have you. Right. But yeah, she takes off and she tells Kevin, and she's just hysterical. It's like she's screaming.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Kevin's like, you did this radical thing to your hair. It was traumatic. You got this pressure of fitting in with new friends in a new place, and you've had some wine. And she's like, oh, it wasn't the wine, Kevin. And this is something that she drops here that pays off a little bit later. We learn that her sister's been popping out a bunch of kids, and she feels alone, and she wants children herself. And she's really excited for Kevin's mom to come to visit, even though I don't think they get along very well. She says, we have all this money, but we don't have any fun. It's just all one big test. And yeah, that comes up like 9 times in this movie. But Charlize Theron, she had thought long and hard about appearing nude in the film, having turned down Showgirl for precisely that reason. But it seemed like that wasn't much of an issue after this movie, because she was nude in a lot of her films.
Yeah. Just casually. I think just casually.
Just casually. Just ask everything she's in. Just ask the filmmaker, like, can I do this scene in no clothes, please?
Because we all saw how it turned out, and The Devil's Advocate.
Everybody liked it. Yeah. And actually, in order to prepare for this role, like, she spent an hour a day over the course of 3 months in New York with a psychotherapist to practice schizophrenia.
Wow. Now talk about dedication.
Yeah.
For real.
And I feel really bad for her here. She's really just at wit's end here. And Kevin goes to comfort her and says, I can't do it. Let's make a baby.
That was good. You just have to say it right.
Joseph, would you tell everybody like how many laughing faces I have in the notes for that?
Not 1, not 2. But 3.
Oh, 3.
3.
We still haven't broken the record yet. Still haven't gone to 4 yet. We'll see.
It
could happen.
It is bound to happen.
and so they're about to do it, but as they're in the process of getting undressed and getting in the moment, she looks like Christabella to him. That's what he sees. It's not Marianne. And then she'll come back. And it does this a few times. It's an interesting way to show where his mind is at right now. Because he's more playful and sensual when he sees Christabella. But Marianne kind of snap him out of it. She's amused and kind of confused about it. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And so he gets back into it. But it's almost like he's not really into having sex with her. With his wife. It's almost out of obligation or out of pity or something like that. Or I don't know. It's like he doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel authentic. In his mind, he's just thinking about Christabella. The music here is really great too. It really escalates. The cymbals and the choir. This sex is getting too rough. She finally has to stop him. And she's like, where are you? And he's like, I'm right here. He's like, no. And that look on her face, like she knows that she's worried. Lost him. She's worried, yeah. Because in that moment, he was giving her what she wanted. Like, she wants a child, and he was there, and he was with her, and it was intimate. They were one, but she knows that she can tell that he is somewhere else in his head.
Right.
How devastating that is for her. Now we go to Cullen's place. This is Donald Trump's private residence at Trump Tower.
That's amazing.
It looks like a set. It's got a fucking painting on the ceiling, and
unbelievable.
And it's gilded in gold.
Unbelievable.
It's gold, Joseph. The apartment is gold.
How much would you pay for that?
He's moving out of New York.
He's moving out of New York.
Yeah, right? He's moving to Florida.
Florida. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
How many homes does he? I don't know. I can't keep
either.
Track.
Yeah,
it's too many houses.
I don't even think I could live. I could not even live in a place like that.
Oh my
I don't know if I could eat in a place like that.
How would you feel about yourself?
I wouldn't want to breathe on anything.
I wonder how you clean that too. Like, is there gold polish? Like,
there's got to be. There's got to be. There's got to be a team of people working on that place, a few times a day.
Like, I'm sure there's 10 servants and they keep a rotation schedule like every other day or every 2 days. It's I'm sure they get paid well, though.
Right. It's the kind of room that you would sit to read a copy of, I don't know, Paradise Lost, perhaps, by the fire. And it's not a place you want to go and like watch a few episodes of Broad City or something like that. Not that kind of atmosphere. So Cullen's place, Kevin is drilling him. Pam is there with him. And he's asking about the blood print on the wall. He's like, right hand and right knee. So how did you do that? Cullen demonstrates. He throws a gun. It's a little pistol. It's a little Walther or something. And he bends down to show, yeah, this is how I picked up the murder weapon. And Kevin's like, whose gun is that? It's like, it's mine. You're charged with a triple homicide and you're walking around with a gun. I have had 9 death threats. And he's like, I don't care. Give me the gun. This is a deal breaker. But Cullen hands it over only after looking at Pam, who is just Kevin's assistant.
Right.
It's really, really interesting. I mean, it's more hints, of course, but...
Oh, yes, of course.
But when you take in the totality of this movie and these moments where you have characters looking at each other that probably have no reason to look at each other, it tells you that there's something much more complex. Yeah, much more complex, orchestrated under the surface.
I have to admit, though, like, how many times have you heard a secretary or an assistant's name as Pam?
Pam.
Like, can we just be honest here? Pam. There's this great Seinfeld episode where Kramer is in love with one of Jerry's exes named Pam, and he just loves her name, and he just can't stop saying it. He's like, Pam. So I always think of that. But so Kevin tells him, all right, I got to talk to your assistant, Mrs. Black, about your alibi. And so the press is hounding Kevin as he arrives home with his wife and his mother. I guess they've been out to dinner. So she's in for a visit. And as they go into the apartment building, it's kind of sweet. Kevin's mom asks the doorman, like, are you hungry? Because she's got some leftovers and she's going to give him the leftovers. I thought that was really, that's something that, a Southerner would do, Exactly.
And there's something about her look that I think is very intentional. Like, she is very much, I would say,
conservative.
Oh yeah, very conservative, but also it reminds me of the way people look who attend like a Pentecostal, Pentecostal church.
Exactly.
Yeah, so very plain dress, simple.
A dress, like a dress every day kind of outfit.
Right, no makeup. Right. And so I don't know, all of that I thought was very, very nicely done. So they run into Milton and Christabella and their new friend, plaything, Giselle, fresh in from Paris. They get on the elevator together. Mrs. Lomax, she's uncomfortable, a little awkward. Milton's trying to talk to her. He says, this isn't your first time in New York, is it, Mrs. Lomax? Kevin answers for us, like, oh, yes, it is. And so they have a really great moment here. And he looks at the girls, and Marianne looks at him like, she catches him looking at these women.
Right.
But they are trying to be seen. They're working on it. Like they're touching each other a little bit. And so when they get off the elevator, because they're about to go up, Milton and his play pals are about to go up to his place. And so they let them off at the elevator. Kevin's mom and Marianne get off first. And so, Kevin, hang on for a second. So how's that case going? He's just trying to make small talk. And he's like, that's a long story. And he's like, you wanna come up and tell me? And he looks into the elevator and he sees Giselle and Christabella. They're making out like hardcore.
Yeah, full out.
And he's like, no, it's okay. And I love that Milton looks from the girls to Kevin with a little smile on his face. He's like, you sure? And
he sticks his tongue out too, like a little bit.
Yeah, he sticks his tongue out just a little bit as the door is closing. I love that. Like just that little snake-like tongue flick. It's subtle. It's a really great aspect of his character. I don't know whose idea that was, but it's probably Pacino's.
It's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This was one of my favorite scenes because even though we don't know the actual relationship between Milton and Kevin's mom, it's that, we just see this intensity between a Christ-loving person and the Antichrist, just head on.
Yeah.
Right? It was just so powerful. It was awesome.
It's great, man. This the next day, Mrs. Lomax tells Kevin she's leaving, doesn't feel right, misses her church. And Kevin's got to run, though. He's too busy. She says, Marianne's not well. You really need to take care of her. And he says, well, stay. Help me take care of her. And she says, I'll take her home if you let me. And he gets very upset. He's like, no, this is home. This is home now. I don't care. You just go do whatever you want. And so he leaves. He's working late, checking out these crime scene photos. He goes to interview Mrs. Black, Melissa Black, who is Alexander Cullen's assistant or secretary. She backs him up, says, oh, he's a good man. He would never kill those people. Kevin notices some people taking boxes into a room, and Eddie and this team of people are working to shred a shitload of stuff.
Right.
And Eddie, his face says, oh, shit, you caught us. So Eddie pulls him out in the hall. He's like, oh, it's just a little housekeeping. If anybody ever asks, you never saw this. So who would ask? Weaver? He's like, oh, you don't know about Weaver. Justice Department. How nice for you. And so it does ring a bell for Kevin. Then Milton shows up. We're going to head to a boxing match. Him and Kevin, have a guy's night out. And so they're on the subway car, and Milton's talking to Kevin, but he's looking at these two guys, these guys that are sitting next to him. And one of them confronts him. He's like, oh, what the fuck are you looking at? So this is my car. He said, oh, I didn't know this was your car. I'm having a good time. This guy pulls a knife on him, and Kevin tries to protect Milton, which I think is very interesting. Like, that was his instinct, is not to approach the perpetrator, but to defend Milton. But anyway, something happens, and Milton starts speaking Spanish, and it catches the guy off guard. And we get this all in subtitles. But he tells him that, hey, your wife is about to be fucked by your best friend on your bed in the ass, basically, on your favorite green bedspread. And so all of these are details that he couldn't possibly know about. And so he's like, take that knife and put it where it belongs. So the guys get off at the next stop, and he blows it off when Kevin asks him about it. So, what did you say to him? I told him that you were going to kick his ass if he didn't leave us alone. Right. And so then they move on. They're at Madison Square Garden for this boxing match. And this wasn't a staged bout. This was actually a legitimate world championship boxing match that occurred October 4th, 1996. So just about a year before this movie came out. It was Roy Jones Jr. He was squaring off against Bryant Brannon. That's hard to say. And Lomax and Milton run into Don King there because he just happened to be in attendance that night. So we get a little cameo there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was like, shit, Don King. I forgot he was in this. And he looks like a troll doll with that hair.
Oh, yeah.
It's all standing straight up. And Kevin, he's getting into the fight, and Milton's enjoying that. Like when he looks at him, like he can tell, good father and son bonding time, And they go out at this flamenco bar with all these people. Who the fuck are these people? Where did they come from?
I keep asking myself how these people just show up.
and Milton knows everybody.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like he's just getting to know them. Like he just happened to meet them that night. Like he just crashed somebody else's party, maybe.
All by coincidence.
Yeah, and these girls are dancing, and the band's playing, the music, it's good energy, and Kevin's in the kitchen. He's on the phone with Marianne, and he's smoking, and we don't hear her dialogue, but we can tell what she's saying based on his response. She's giving him shit about smoking. And he's like, I haven't had a cigarette in 7 months. And she's giving him shit about him working late. He's like, this guy is my boss. He pays our bills. And that enormous fucking apartment we live in. And Milton's getting up. He's losing himself in the music. And Kevin's having a laugh at it. And something, too. So he's smoking now. So he's becoming one of them.
Yeah.
And his suit gets darker as the movie progresses. So it starts it starts out as this lighter color, and then it gets increasingly darker shades of gray, and by the end of the movie, his suit is black. So this, I'd read, it could indicate his character's decreasing morality throughout the movie. So I thought that was a nice choice.
I'd say there's maybe 50 shades of gray that he, uses in this movie, Thank you.
Shit, I just stole your line. That's usually what you do.
Trading places here.
Yeah, we're trading places here.
I do want to point out, though, they use the color red.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a lot of red.
And in this bar scene, when Milton starts dancing, you can see the girls wearing red. The lights in the back are bright orange, red. And it's just, it plays very well.
Oh, absolutely. All these women. Milton's guessing where these people are from, like it's a parlor trick. And he whispered, I love this. He whispers to this girl, and then she gets under the table, and Kevin's just looking at him, and Milton's laughing, smoking his cigarette. So
the guy gets around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a great scene or shot, where he bends over and whispers in her ear, and then he's fumbling with a cigarette and trying to pull the tablecloth up to let her under the table. And so while John Milton is getting his knob polished at dinner, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back right after this.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
So it's that time. We want to give a special shout out to our patrons who support the show over on Patreon. We got Mondo, Pete, Colin, Mike, Jack, Lewis, Test Pattern, a horror movie podcast, Bloody in Love, Jonathan, James, Ryan M, and Ryan S. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. And if you're interested in becoming a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/AmericonVideo for more information. And now let's get back to this really long movie.
Woohoo! Yeah.
So that last scene ends with Marianne waking up on the couch. She's calling for Kevin. She gets up and she wakes up again and sees herself walking out of the room. Has that ever happened to you? I have that false waking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like where you think you're awake, but you're still dreaming, and then you wake up again.
Right. Because you're sleeping and you feel like you're living what you're dreaming about. And when you actually do wake up, your brain goes into, like, at least for me, it goes into this hyperdrive.
Yeah. Now, I used to wake up, or I would think that I was waking up for school and getting ready, or, taking a piss, or get in the shower or something like that. But then I would wake up and I'm still in bed.
In bed, right?
Yeah. So that's what's happening to her here. And she gets scared. She's going through the house. She's got a knife. One thing I want to say about her southern accent right here is that she says into her apartment that she has a knife and not a knife.
Knife.
Yeah. And that's how, I know we would say it in rural Tennessee, a knife. I got a knife.
I got a knife.
In this room, she finds a little naked baby.
Naked.
It's naked. I did write that in my notes that way. Naked.
Nekkid. Naked.
And we should have done drive-in totals for this movie because it's got a lot of naked breasts in this movie. So this baby's got its back to her, and she is like, "Oh, hey, baby, where's your mommy? What you got there?" And we see this child turns and is holding up these bloody entrails that we don't know what they are yet. "What you got there, baby?" It's like, bloody gore, bitch. Look it, and her slip or nightie or whatever, it has blood on it, kind of near her waist area, and she freaks out. And then we get another one of those great time lapse shots with some of that whooshing sound and choir and stuff. And then she's with Kevin, and he's holding the nightie or whatever, and he's saying, "Look, there's no blood. It was just all a dream." And man, she's looking rough, and she's like, "I know you're gonna leave me now for sure." But she won't let him touch her, and Kevin doesn't know what to do. And then she just kind of breaks for a second. She's like, "Did you like the green? You did, didn't you? We should go back to the green." And he's like, "I'm calling the doctor." And she screams, "They took my ovaries." Says, "My sisters have 7 kids between them. You could have set a clock by my periods. And I talked to the doctor. I can't have children. Non-specific ovarian failure." And then she's like, "Shh, did you just hear that? Listen, can you hear that? You're going to leave me, aren't you?" She's very pitiful.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, it's tragic how fast she went downhill because, of course, we can talk about free will as much as we want to here, but I definitely think that the atmosphere that she got forced into is really paying a huge toll.
Yeah.
And the fact that she wanted babies all this time and the whole nightmare, which I definitely believe was handed to her by Milton for sure, her losing a child is the climax of her downfall.
Yeah. Yeah, so the phone rings, and then she tells Kevin, so no, it's these monsters, and you got to listen to me, and he won't. He takes the call, and you can see the defeat on her face. Like, something's happening with the case, and he has to leave. But in that moment, he had the opportunity to say, "No, I'm going to listen to my wife, and I'm going to be here for her." But no, he's got to go. And so he leaves. He's outside this building. There's a little bit of snow. He's sucking down a cigarette and pitches it before Cullen comes out. He's pulled him out of visitation with his stepdaughter to chat. Cullen's not happy about it. But in short, Kevin confronts Cullen about this bit of information. So you were banging your assistant, and your wife suspected that. That's motive. So we got to deal with that. We get this new alibi. Cullen says he was with his assistant, Mrs. Black, the night his wife was shot. But we're not telling that story. And so Kevin's trying to figure out a way to get that story to come to light, because if he was with his assistant, then he wasn't killing his wife and those other 2 people.
Right.
And so these social workers leave with Cullen's stepdaughter. And then we change over to Kevin and Milton, and Milton says, "Hey, I'm taking you off the case. She's your wife, man. She's sick. She needs you, and she's got to come first." He's surprised because that has never entered Kevin's mind.
Right.
But Kevin says in his defense, "What scares me is that I quit the case, she gets better, and I hate her for it." And
and that pays a toll.
It does. It does. That's a really complex attitude there, I think. But it's really, I think, just his way of justifying being in court. Like, he says, "I just got to get it done, and then I can put all my energy into her." But it's that thrill of being in the court and seeing the smile of the jury and all that stuff that he's later tempted with that keeps him going. Milton's like, "Okay, I stand corrected." We're in court. We learn there's a solid case against Cullen. And this prosecutor, by the way, I don't know the actor's name right offhand, but he has a small part in Ghostbusters, the first one, as a rep of the New York Public Library who greets the Ghostbusters when they arrive. So just a little tidbit there. Tiny, tiny, tiny scene here. Kevin's talking to the jury. He says, I don't like Alexander Cullen. I don't think he's a nice man. He's been a terrible husband to all 3 or 4 of his wives and all this stuff, and just running him into the ground. And Cullen's looking at Pam like, what the fuck? What's he doing?
Right. But this was a brilliant play.
It was.
And you could already tell.
Yeah, it was a masterful stroke. Like, as he ends his remarks with, is not liking this man reason enough to convict him of murder. What we're going to show you is that he was somewhere else when these crimes took place. Then the next thing, Cullen pushes Kevin against the wall. What the fuck are you doing? They're going to hate me. And he's like, you listen to me like you never listened to anybody before in your life. I'm going to make sure they hate you, because as long as you're out there boning Melissa, you're not at home killing your wife.
And his face.
Yeah, he's like, oh. He's like, why didn't you say something before? So it didn't look spontaneous. Oh, you got it now. It's good. It's good. And so Kevin's on the street. He's been picking up some takeout or something. And he runs into Eddie. He's been out jogging. Says Kevin's name is now on the firm's charter as a partner. And Kevin is oblivious. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And Eddie isn't buying it. He's like, oh, you think you're tough enough to run this firm? Ha! It's like, remember the Weaver Commission investigation? Tell your mentor. I like his delivery here. Tell your mentor. Next time he calls, maybe I'll just pick up the phone. And then he just takes off, jogging again. So Kevin goes and tells Milton. Milton's like, Eddie's got himself in trouble again. And then he needs my help, but I can't help him this time. And we're going to condense this because Milton gives this long, long speech as we see Eddie running. Right. And these 3 joggers approach Eddie and they disappear. We just get this kind of predator glimmer of them as they run. So while this is happening, this is a little note that I found on IMDb. So each of these joggers are wearing a color associated with the horsemen of the apocalypse. So one is wearing red, one is wearing white, and one is wearing black. And so these are the colors of the 3 of the 4 horsemen colors of their horse. So war is red, famine is black, and conquest or pestilence is white. So there you go. The more you know.
It's crazy how much detail they put into this.
Yeah. And really excellent writing here, this speech about God's special creature, right? These joggers are closing in, and Marianne opens a window. It's like she can see it happen, or she's experiencing it happen. Milton keeps talking over all of this as it's going on. We got 1 million Eddie Barzoons ready to fist fuck God's ex-planet. And these 2 homeless guys assault Eddie, and they ask him for his watch. He's like, I like this watch. So he's making the choice that he's going to keep this watch, and he just won't give it up. And so they beat him to death with a tree branch. And every hit, we see their faces change into these demons. And,
oh, man.
And it's a great scene because there's so much happening here in so many different places. We go to Kevin interrogating Mrs. Black in a kind of mock interrogation. He's prepping her for taking the stand, getting her ready to take the heat from the prosecution. He's asking about, what time were you with Mr. Cullen? Did he go to the bathroom at all? And then he springs something that catches her off guard. He says, is he circumcised?
Right.
And she's a little stumped. And in this moment, he changes from being kind of this coach for her, like for the stand, and he becomes the interrogator. He's like, so what is it? Is he cut? So you've been polishing his nom for months and you don't know if he's got foreskin or not?
Oh.
Yeah. She's like, I've had enough of your fucking games. I want to take your questions and stick them up your ass or something like that. It's like, oh, shit.
Damn.
But then in that moment, he knows it's all bullshit. Like, he knows it. Right. He knows Cullen's guilty. And he leaves. He finds out Eddie's been killed. He's rushed off to court, gets on the subway, and he's talking to Milton, says, you got to put Eddie aside. Let me worry about it. And Kevin says, Mrs. Black is lying. Cullen killed those people. He feels set up. Milton's like, I'll back you either way. Maybe it's your time to lose. And, think I haven't lost before? And we're in court. What's Kevin going to do? Milton is seated behind him. He goes through with it. He reluctantly calls Melissa Black to the stand, and that look on his face, his performance says a lot here. As she gets up, and we get one of those looks between Cullen and Milton, and she puts her hand on the Bible and all that stuff. And it's just those smiles from everybody. Like, this is like, yes, you gave in to your human side, your human impulses. It's just really well played. And so he wins, and he gets out of there right away, wins the case.
He immediately just starts running back to his wife.
Yeah. He knows what he did was wrong, but now that it's over, he's going to Marianne. So he's making good on his word that now at least he's going to put all of his energy into her as he had promised Milton. He arrives at the apartment and the doorman says that, hey, your wife didn't look well, but she went to this church, the nearby church, the Church of Heavenly Hope. And so Kevin runs to it, and Marianne is there, seated in a pew on the front row, wrapped in a blanket. It's like, what happened? And she says, he let himself in. We talked for hours. It was Milton, and he fucked me. And Kevin's like, nope. Nope, it didn't happen. No way. He was in my presence all day. Doesn't believe it. But she stands up and rips off the sheet nude. And she's got all these cuts and bruises and stuff and screams, he did this to me. And Kevin, he wraps her up again and says, what did you do to yourself?
You can't believe it.
You can't really blame him because Milton was there with him all day. Right. So he admits her to a hospital. He signs her in. He's a lefty, I noticed.
Wow.
Yay. Woohoo. Another one for the team. Oh, actually, I knew he was a lefty. He plays bass in some band, and I saw a picture of him once. He was playing a left-handed bass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I haven't heard any of his music, but if you're interested, his band is called Dog Star. Go check that out. Dog Star. So as they're wheeling Marianne away, it says, I know why this is happening. It's the money, blood money, and we just drank it down, both of us. We knew those people were guilty. And so he leaves her and goes to Eddie's funeral, and it's quite a social event.
Yes.
Jackie says to Kevin, doesn't Diana just look fabulous? And everybody's talking about what everybody is wearing. And
right. Nothing is about Eddie.
No,
nothing.
No one talks about it. No one's talking about Eddie this entire scene except the pastor whatever, priest, whatever that guy is.
Yeah, priest. I think he was a priest, yeah.
And it's talking about, he's such a vibrant member of the community. And Kevin sits down beside Jackie while the eulogy is happening. Christabella squeezes in. He's looking at her boobs. She catches him looking at her boobs. So even in this scene where he knows his wife isn't well in a fucking mental hospital, and he's staring at these tits, these really pale tits next to him, And sorry, I'm not trying to be snotty, but I'm just saying that, it's true. It's like that's where his mind is at. And again, it's all this human nature that Milton later talks about. And,
right. And he's got two females like squeezed up against him.
Right. Yeah. He's stuck in the middle there. And Cullen sits down up ahead of him with his stepdaughter and the social worker, Mrs. Schuyler. He has his hand behind his stepdaughter's back, resting it on the back of the pew. He's rubbing the fucking bare back skin of his stepdaughter because it's like an open back dress. For a moment, he's Mr. Geddes. Like it's that actor, and looks at Kevin, and it's just mocking. And just to drive him a little bit further into madness, Kevin leaves.
You just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, you can't blame him. I mean, he's having a really bad day, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. I'm sorry.
Big facts.
Big facts. This man approaches Kevin on the street. This is Mitch Weaver of the Justice Department, and he's the guy who's been investigating Milton Chadwick Waters, and he tells Kevin that the firm is involved in a lot of bad shit like arms brokering, chemical weapons, toxic waste, money laundering all across the world. Milton is into everything. So, okay, now we know it's confirmed. All those people are bad. We get Milton again. And he's in the church. And I like these shots of him in the church where he is mocking. He sticks his finger in the holy water and it boils. That's really cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. Now, would you say that Weaver represents something like an archangel in a way?
I don't know. The Weaver character is curious. There's a lot more of him in the deleted scenes and stuff, but in the theatrical cut, he doesn't serve a lot of purpose other than to tell Kevin and the audience about
just what's real.
Yeah, what's real. Exactly. So that's how he's functioning here. But also, Kevin is defending Milton. He says, he's a lawyer. Get away from me. And so they're across the street from each other now. Weaver's still talking to him. He's like, this is the last time. This is it. This is the offer. He tells Kevin that, remember Mr. Geddes down in Florida? Oh, they found him yesterday, and he had the body of a 10-year-old girl in the trunk of his car. I mean, it just confirms, to Kevin, yeah, he was guilty. And I knew he was guilty, and I let it happen anyway. And Weaver's face is really, this is a cool little performance here. It just says, yeah, I got you. You'll talk to me now. Like, I got through to you. And so he goes across the street. He doesn't see this car coming, and he gets hit by it. This is really cool, too. Kevin goes to look at him, and as he turns him over, he sees Eddie's bloody face.
It's fantastic.
I love this shit. I mean, isn't that cool?
Oh, my gosh. It's fantastic.
It kind of reminded me of that scene, in Empire Strikes Back, when Luke's in the cave
with Darth Vader and he sees his own face.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing for me. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So all you folks out there, let me tell you, like this is already going to be our longest episode we've ever done, and so we're trying not to rush it, but we're trying to give things fair attention here. So bear with us. Now we're back to Mary Ann in the hospital. Mrs. Lomax is there. She arrived that morning, and she is reading the Bible to Mary Ann. Kevin arrives, and his mom says we need to talk. Mary Ann's pretty much catatonic right now, and so Kevin and his mom leave Mary Ann with Pam.
Good old Pam.
Good old Pam. Pam. And Kevin and his mom are talking out in the hall and says, I could have told you the truth. It was 1966, youth group trip to New York City. We stayed for a week, stayed at the Tremont Hotel, and there was a restaurant at the hotel, and your father was a waiter there. And this is, and Kevin's like, oh, this is great, Ma. Now? You do this now? You wait 30 years and you tell me today? He's going crazy there. He's walking back to check on Mary Ann. She's screaming at him to listen to her. And she says, behold, I send you out as sheep amidst the wolves. Uh-oh. The jig is up. We know what's up now.
Yeah. And it's getting heated.
Yeah. I mean, tension's really building here. And Pam gives Mary Ann a mirror. It's like, oh, look how beautiful you are. And for a moment, you can see it on her face. Like she's not afraid to look at her own reflection, and she smiles a little bit. But then the mirror turns a little bit and we see Pam's face and it changes. See?
Yeah, the demon.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh.
So Mary Ann throws the mirror and it breaks, and she pushes Pam out, barricades the door, and she's looking at Kevin through the window. She's hearing voices, and Kevin's trying to break the window. He eventually does, but he still can't get into the room. And Pam is just watching. No expression. This wrecked 12-year-old Brandon, let me tell you, in the theater, because
this was hard to watch.
It was hard. It's still hard for me to watch. Like when it happens, she gets
this is hard.
Bends down, and they milk this. It takes a while for this to happen. She gets this shard of mirror, and the music, it's swelling. It's the choir.
Yep.
You know what she's going to do. And then she just looks at Kevin and says, I love you. And she absolutely means it. And it's sad. It's so sad. And she just violently rams that piece of glass into her throat.
And just slits it.
Yeah, just rakes it across her windpipe just as Kevin is getting into the room. And Keanu Reeves, man, he's really, I mean, I give him a lot of flack for his accent in this movie, but in this scene, he's really selling it here as they're trying to revive her.
Oh my God.
Like when he realizes, this is where it hits him like a fucking freight train of how much he has lost and how much he willingly gave up for this job and everything, and how he let this happen. There's just so much I can imagine going through his mind right now.
It's unbelievable. From all the movies that we've done on this show, I cannot name one where I've seen something as intense as this. And that says a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, I agree. Just moments later, Kevin, he goes back to his mom in the waiting room, and the blood is on his collar, but he's composed now. He's not hysterical like he was before, and he's like, finish the story. And so the short version was, she says to him that your father was always at my ear, knew the Bible, every word. And the last night we were there, he said to me, behold, I send you out as sheep amidst the wolves. He's like, I want to hear you say it. Say it, say it. And she just keeps putting it off. Like, oh, I should have told you, or I knew that night in the elevator and all this. It's like, say it. It's like, yeah, come on, woman, look, get it out, get it out. It's like, yeah, Milton, he's your father. He's like, yeah, I know that now. And I gotta go. So he leaves her. Pam is outside the hospital entrance. She's very cheery, smoking a cigarette. He's like, oh, you look peaked or whatever. He's like, don't worry. He'll take away that fear. Go on. He's waiting for you.
Jeez.
Yeah. So he walks down the middle of this street, and it's desolate. I can't remember what street this is in New York, but this was a feat to get this shot. This is not CGI.
Wow.
They closed this massive, massive street. No, not a soul. Not a soul in sight, not a car. Yeah, a nice crane shot, just empty New York City.
Oh, man.
And it's practically done. It's really nice. Now we're off to this exciting conclusion, the finale. We're at Milton's office / quarters. This is a long scene. This is like a 20, 25-minute scene. So we're going to try to truncate it as best as we can.
Right.
And Milton does most of the talking. He pretty much says, well, I'm no puppeteer, Kevin. People have free will. I just set the stage. I don't pull the strings. And Kevin pulls a gun on him. And he said, what did you do to Mary Ann? Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, Was it 10 being the most depraved acts of sexual theater known to man?
Right.
And 1 being your average Friday night run through at the Lomax's house. Not to be immodest, Marianne and I got it on at about 7.
And that's when he just rages.
Yeah, just unloads the clip and he's like, got me. You got me. That's good. Step right up, son. So it doesn't do anything. Bullets just go right through him. It's like, what are you? It's like, who am I? Who are you? Never lost a case? Why? Because you're so fucking good. But why? Because you're my father. I'm a little more than that, Kev. Satan. Ooh, call me dad. And so that's okay.
Classic.
In Kevin's mind, this is cool to see like where he's coming from. He says, Marianne knew it and you destroyed her. And he's like, you blaming me for Marianne? It's like, oh, I hope you're kidding. You could have saved her anytime you liked. All she wanted was love. But hey, you were too busy. And Kevin's like, that's a lie. But he keeps saying that like you're lying. But it's true. It's true. He gave him every possible out. Mm-hmm. I told you to take care of your wife. But Milton goes through all the New York cases. He itemizes pretty much. Like the Moyes case, Swamis, snake handlers, blah, 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 all feeding at the same trough. Whose ideas were those? So he's pretty much saying, Kevin, all of these decisions were yours to make. And this was all you. I didn't do any of this. And I said, maybe this was your time to lose. And you didn't think so.
Right.
And that's when he does this big, I don't lose. I win. I'm a lawyer. That's my job. That's what I do.
Do. It's not do. It's
do.
Crocky.
Yeah. Self-love is so basic. The all-natural opiate. And he says that, pretty much calls Kevin out. It's like, maybe you were a little bit more involved with someone else, like yourself. And then Kevin's like, you're right. I'll let it go. It's like, don't be too hard on yourself, Kevin. Yeah, he's like, I didn't make it easy for you or your sister. And then Christabella walks out, Well, half-sister to be exact. And he says, I've had so many children, mistake after mistake. And there's you, the two of you. And this is where we get to the negotiating.
Right.
What do you want from me? He's like, I just want you to be yourself. Guilt's like a bag full of bricks. You just got to set them down. And then we get this big, big speech.
Let me give you a little inside information about God. God likes to watch. He's a prankster. Think about it. He gives man instincts. He gives you this extraordinary gift, and then what does he do? I swear, for his own amusement, his own private cosmic gag reel, he sets the rules in opposition. It's the goof of all time. Look, but don't touch. Touch, but don't taste. Taste, don't swallow. And while you're jumping from one foot to the next, what is he doing? He's laughing his sick fucking ass off. He's a tight ass. He's a sadist. He's an absentee landlord. Worship that? Never.
Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, is that it?
Why not? I'm here on the ground with my nose in it since the whole thing began. I've nurtured every sensation man has been inspired to have. I cared about what he wanted, and I never judged him. Why? Because I never rejected him. In spite of all his imperfections, I'm a fan of man. I'm a humanist. Maybe the last humanist. Who, in their right mind, Kevin, could possibly deny the 20th century was entirely mine? All of it, Kevin! All of it. Mine.
So anyway, this giant sculpture we've been talking about, this is a big point of contention here. So this, I don't know how big this thing is. This is probably 15, 20 feet square. It comes alive. There are these figures in the sculpture. They come alive. And the sculptor, Frederick Hart, and the Episcopal National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., sued Warner Brothers over this sculpture because it was deemed to look too much like a work that Hart had created called Ex Nihilo. Warner Brothers agreed to edit the scene for future releases. And so the short version is that Warner Brothers was allowed to release 475,000 copies on home video, but along with a sticker on the movie that says that there was no relationship between the sculpture in the film and Hart's work.
Interesting.
Very crazy.
Wow.
And there's a little bit more history on there, and we'll share the link with you guys on Twitter and stuff if you want to read a little bit more into it. But yeah, these figures that are moving in the sculpture, these are ballerinas moving in water. That was used as the basis for the sculpture. And so the special effects supervisor, Edward Williams, said that he filmed the people, the statue effect, and they were naked and placed in a tank next to a blue screen. And it reportedly took 3 months to film these people and add the computer effects. And it cost $2 million, or about 40% of the overall budget for special effects.
I mean, that means they really wanted this in there.
They really wanted this in there, yeah.
Wow.
As far as the aesthetic of the film, it works really, really well. Its meaning isn't really clear. We just know that there are these entities that are kind of swirling around in a very sensual sort of way. It's very sexual. And so, yeah, like I said, I want to talk about this. So the devil says, in short, that he's a fan of man. And he's a humanist. Maybe the last humanist. So the way he works is that he sets the stage. He doesn't make people do things because of free will. And so in his mind, all of these things that have come to fruition have been because it is human nature, that it is in our nature to be these things and to do these things.
Yeah, well, we're not perfect creatures, right? And so without direction, we tend to get into chaos or tend to be a little bit more erratic than we would like to be. Mm-hmm. And I say would like that than what we would like to be, because personally, I just think that we need some type of moral code to put ourselves in a right position in our daily lives. And, just do whatever you want. Because, if we do that, then we're just going to regret a lot of what we do. And I think, even though the devil says that he's a humanist, that's the problem, is that he is a humanist.
Right. His opinion is essentially reject morality. Like that, right. that is human nature, is to be immoral. Christianity or religion in general, tying yourself to this higher power, this is a chain around your neck. You're being imprisoned by these rules and everything. And why are you doing this to yourself? Be free. Milton is selling Kevin on everything he could possibly want. That walk into a strange girl's bedroom, the smile of a jury, all this kind of stuff. And Kevin's like, I can get that on my own. He's like, yeah, I know. I'm just getting warmed up. And we get this weird little Sinatra number here. It's
yeah, Sinatra, I know.
The music starts playing. Yeah, it happened in Monterey, and he's lip syncing to it. It's kind of weird. Yeah, Christabella pulls Kevin aside and says, "Don't worry about him. This is about us. Don't pay him any attention." Kevin pushes her away. He's like, Kevin wants to know why the law. And he's like, because the law, my boy, puts us into everything. It's the ultimate backstage pass. The new priesthood, baby. Yeah, we're coming out. Guns blazing. Acquittal after acquittal after acquittal until the stench is so thick I forgot what he said. It reaches up to heaven and chokes the whole fucking lot of them. But he says, we're going to write our own book right here on this altar. Christabella says, look at me. And she takes her clothes off and she mocks the crucifix. She does this little pose.
Right.
The sculpture is doing its little swirly thing and they start making out. Kevin asks her, what about love? And Milton reaches over. He's like, overrated. Biochemically no different than eating large quantities of chocolate.
Right.
It's like, it's time to step up and take what's yours. And Kevin stops. He's you think he's about to get jiggy with his half sister there on the altar.
Exactly.
Free will, right? And he pulls out Cullen's gun and blows his brains out.
Totally unexpected.
Do you like how I represented this in the notes?
Yes. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the notes for our future, or for this next quote from John Milton, Brandon has in the notes, a lot of O's and all capitalized, highlighted in orange and yellow, just bold fucking all across this page. That, when I'm scrolling through the notes before this podcast episode, I immediately come across this and I'm like, what the hell? What is this? And then I realized,
that makes sense. That makes sense. So Kevin shoots himself, and then so everything, the whole game is over. Christabella just withers away into
this hideous skeleton.
Yeah, it's just like a husk of a person.
Right.
And everything goes up in flames, as does the sculpture. all this is happening as we're seeing all the flames and stuff. We see Kevin. It's a slow, very slow motion shot of him falling down, blood coming out of his head. We see Milton. He rips his clothes off in one go. It's kind of cool. It's on fire. And he's looking at Kevin, and then he changes to where he looks like Kevin with long hair. So this is, it's Milton, it's Satan, Lucifer, however you want to interpret that, as a fallen angel, because we see his wings and stuff. He screams, and we zoom into his mouth, and we're going through this tunnel to hell, this swirling mass of tormented souls, the bodies.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
And then we're back in the courtroom at the beginning during the Getty's case.
My God. Golly gee. No way.
So yeah, we're right at the beginning. So Kevin's in the bathroom. He's looking in the mirror, and it kind of freaks out. He just stumbles for a second. It's like, what the fuck's going on? And he looks over and he sees Larry taking a piss, and he's about to walk out. He says the same thing as before. Yeah,
good old Larry.
Had to close that someday. Nobody wins them all. Everything is as it was. So he goes back out into the courtroom, and he sees Getty's and the judge, and there's Mary Ann. And I love this moment.
Oh my God. I cried. Can we just pause for a moment and just appreciate that this is by far my favorite scene in the entire movie.
I love it. It's so sweet. It's so sweet. Like last night, when I was doing my last note, I stopped writing and I made this full screen on my computer, and I just gave this my full undivided attention. And I was tearing up, man. No shame. Like, she just looks at him and she touches his face, and she's like, "What are you doing, baby? You okay?"
And the way they look at each other, like, you could just see through his eyes the entire, in just one little scene. You just, through his eyes, you could just see everything that he went through in a split second, just as he looked at her and just realized, where his priorities are versus where they were.
It still gets me, man, because this is like, when you think back about the scene when he lost her, when she said, "I love you," and she killed herself, and he was there holding her, she was bleeding out, and he was just absolutely hysterical and devastated. And him seeing now that, I know now what's at stake.
Right.
And yeah, everything's okay now. Court's back in session. Barbara's on the stand. It's his time to talk to her, like before he destroys her on the stand. And he has a moment, and he tells the judge, that he can no longer represent his client and he needs to be replaced. Chaos in the courtroom. It's kind of funny because Getty's tells Kevin, he's like, "You're going to burn for this." Kevin's probably thinking, "No, but you will." And so I like that bit. And Larry is watching, which I think I like this, where we see him watching now. Like, I don't know, there's something about that. So anyway, they're adjourned. And Mary Ann asks him, "What are you doing?" He's like, "The right thing. I think the right thing." Larry's waiting for Kevin, and he gets rid of the press. He's like, "Go away. He'll talk to you tomorrow, 8 a.m. And he's like, "Oh, this is the big one, Kevin. Big story and everything." And I think he says, "They're going to disbar me, Larry. Why don't you write about that?" And he was like, "Bullshit."
Bullshit.
I can't remember that guy's name. I think he might be a New York actor. I can't remember, but he's doing that bullshit thing pretty good. Yeah, he gets points for that. But Larry says, "You're a star. You need to give me an exclusive." Even Mary Ann's like, while he's thinking about it, Mary Ann's like, "Baby." Yeah.
Gotta go for it.
And he's like, "Okay, call me in the morning." They descend the stairs. Larry's at the top, and he morphs into Milton. It's good.
Good shot.
It's just a standard run-of-the-mill morph, but great last line. "Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin." And then
awesome.
We roll those fiery credits over some Rolling Stones, baby. Good old Paint It Black. What'd you make of this ending?
I like the morph. It was great. However, like, my first instinct was that I was immensely disappointed by the whole, here's Kevin, best scene that we've ever seen in this whole entire movie. And then all of a sudden we get this epic slap in the face with Milton appearing on screen. The last damn face that we see in this movie is him. And, it's fine. I can understand why they did that. But at the same time, I would have much rather just seen Kevin and Mary Ann just walking out of the building holding hands.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It seems a little gimmicky at the end, but if you really try to roll with it, I think we could say it's pretty much the whole movie was like, this could happen, Kevin. This is all at stake here, and you're defending all these guilty people, and you don't need to do that anymore. And so he's able to kind of course correct. But at the end of the movie, he's still being tempted, and he's giving into it.
Right.
Larry's like, you're a star. Give me an exclusive. So he's appealing to his ego and his vanity, and Kevin buys it. He's like, okay, yeah, call me in the morning. And so you think, maybe Milton's going to have the last laugh.
The devil's everywhere, basically.
Right. It's like it's never done. He's always going to be there to tempt him.
Right.
Operating behind the curtain, up Mona Lisa's skirt.
Yeah. The huge surprise,
And they'll never see him coming. Final thoughts, man. What you got? Hit us.
Golly. Exceptional movie. It's a deep movie. It's more than honestly I could put into words, more than any definition can explain. It's one to really dive deep about because so much that is needed to be explained in heaven and hell, and what really goes on in the supernatural is needs to be discussed. Society itself does not do much justice in that world and in defining what is hell, because we talk about God all the time, and rightfully so, and we talk about the good and what needs to be done, and forgiveness and being kind to others, but we also don't talk about the 90% or even 99.9% of what goes on in this world, because we always talk about how this world is bad, there's so much hate and there's so much violence and immorality, right? And all that has to do with the devil. So I'm glad that this movie presents this case, and oh my God, the music does such a phenomenal job of describing this picture of hell. The visuals as well, with the demons and what we could interpret of what a demon would look like, or what we can interpret what the devil would look like. It's a perfect representation of that. And the music goes along perfectly with it, because if you think about it, Mary Ann was killing herself, and you heard all of these whispers and voices in the background with this daunting crescendo of strings, and it just gives you a screaming nature, the whole gnashing of teeth and crying, and beautifully done. But I just feel like, as humans, Satan being a humanist, right, we see Kevin constantly falling into a pit of temptation, constantly, and I think visually we need to see this, because I'm not saying anything bad about the Bible, but we can't always look at a piece of paper to tell us what to do. Oh, I can't say enough about this movie. I'm going to give some of this to you to talk about. Yeah. Great job.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I knew that you would really like this one. And like I said, this was probably top 15 movie for me. I couldn't really tell you where it would fall, but I've seen this one a whole lot and I love it. This is one that every time I watch it, I learn something new. I pick up on something new. There's just so many layers to this movie. And I think it's such a shame that this is one that has been kind of swept under the rug, or it's one that isn't really, I haven't seen it streaming anywhere. I don't really hear a lot of people talk about it. Like the big speech at the end, like in Milton's quarters, like that is the scene. You see that more on like YouTube and stuff, people sharing that and memes from that. But I even looked on YouTube, because a lot of movies, people will do little essays and commentaries and stuff like that. And there's really not a whole lot out there. But reading the comments, there are a lot of fans of it. It's just not as mainstream as it used to be. So this is one that I was really, really excited to talk about. It's one of those that I think if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while, like you should probably track it down. And I will tell you, I'll give you a little tip here. If you can find like an older DVD copy of it, find that, because in the Blu-ray and subsequent video releases, that sculpture we talked about has been digitally altered. So there are no figures in it until like the final scene. So whenever Kevin looks at it and reacts to it, it's just a very plain looking sculpture, not a lot to it. And so it's a little weird and distracting. And so that's the earlier DVD. That's the more pure, I guess, version. I'm really, really glad we got to talk about it today. And I forgot it was 2 hours and 26 minutes. And we've been recording for 2 hours and 57 minutes. But you listening out there, with editing, you shouldn't be that far along. Please go out and watch this. It's really cool. And please let us know what you think about it. Drop us a line in VericonVideo@gmail.com. Call us on the hotline. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, at Twitter too, guys. Just tweet us out and we'll be replying back to you.
Please do. Please do.
Also, On Joe's shoutouts, since we've been on the conversation of the supernatural, I want to make a huge go check it out film shout out to the Adjustment Bureau featuring Matt Damon and Emily Blunt. It was released back in 2011. Damon plays this politician named David Norris, who meets this ballerina named Elise Sella, who is played by Emily Blunt. She's absolutely gorgeous. Oh my God. Though David is instantly smitten with her, these mysterious men conspire to keep him away from the beautiful dancer. David learns that he's facing the powerful agents of fate itself, and glimpsing the future laid out for him, must either accept a predetermined path that does not include Elise, or else defy fate to be with her. Such a good film, y'all. It can be streamed on YouTube and Amazon Prime, so please go check it out.
Yeah, I remember that movie. I never saw it, but it's got John Slattery in it from Mad Men, who also plays Tony Stark's father in the Marvel movies.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really
great cast.
Really great actor.
And now, coming soon to video cassette.
So next time, hopefully we can get this in before Thanksgiving, but we're going to be talking about planes, trains, and automobiles. It's a top 10er for me. And pretty soon we'll be talking about some other really awesome movies from the rental era. So stay tuned, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Peace out, baby.
Remember to rate and review the show on iTunes. If you have questions, suggestions, or just want to tell Brandon and Joseph what you think of the show, send them an email at vericonvideo@gmail.com or call the Vericon Video hotline at 312-620-5560. They are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vericon Video. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for Brandon and Joseph's next chat about another exciting movie from the rental era. So long, and peace out.
Goodbye, Vietnam! That's right. I'm history. I'm out of here. I got the lucky ticket home, baby.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Jenny.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle. Goodbye.
Do take good care of yourself.
What is this, your farewell speech? Going home. Have a good trip.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I have to go.
Adieu, auf Wiedersehen, Gesundheit.
Stay well.